Hello, ladies. It's Carol Lourie, and I'm so honored and excited to have the honorable and genius and wonderful Susan Weed. I've had her book. She just showed me there's an updated copy, a version,
Oh, actually,
but
this is a different book.
it's a different book. But I've had this book. Look, Breast Cancer, Breast Health, The Wise Woman Way for years and years. And there isn't a week that goes by where I don't use it as reference. Susan is one of the premier experts in herbology and herbal medicine and the beauty of botanical medicine. And we're here to share. She's so kind to share her time and wisdom with us. So thank you and welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Carol. You know, the way Carol and I got together was that Carol offered a free master class on preventing breast cancer recurrence. And I've often said over the past 10 years that there's a whole new field starting, which is the field of dealing with the cancers caused by cancer treatment.
Oh, so true. They don't
It
talk about
used
that.
used to be that we treated people with cancer so late in their lives that we didn't have to worry about the cancers we were causing by the
Good
treatments.
point.
But as the cancers are happening earlier and earlier in people's lives, if you're treating somebody who's in their 30s, that 25-year span, they're still going to be alive. So I was really
25 or more, 25 or more, right?
interested to hear what Carol had to say, because it's a very big concern. And she said, to my mind, all the right things. So
Oh,
I wrote her and I said, you are giving such brilliant information, such important information. And you could up the ante by talking about nourishing herbal infusions.
well,
And
I'm
she wrote,
always into upping the ante. Yes.
yes, and she wrote back and said, let's do it. Let's turn them on to nourishing herbal infusions.
So it looks
In
like coffee that you're drinking, but it's not coffee.
it's
Aha.
right?
Right.
This is not an herbal tea, is it?
No.
An herbal tea you can kind of see through.
Right.
This is an infusion. An
I can
infusion is
tell.
made with one herb dried. So a tea can be made of many herbs and they can be dried or fresh. But an infusion is made of only one herb at a time and it's always dried. Now, why do we want it dried? Because plants have very, very tough cell walls. Hear me knocking on wood? This is
Yeah.
cell walls of plants.
It's protective for the plant. It keeps them from being exposed, being vulnerable to fungi and parasites. It's self-protective. And we want to take that protection and use it for our body and our health.
But that cell wall, it protects what's inside the cell. And of course, cells are tiny, right? We're talking about like 1,000,000 cells of an ordinary size in a single printed period. So juicing and chewing can't break any cell walls, but drying breaks the cell wall. So when we use a dried herb, that's when we get this good dark color because the minerals have now extracted into the water. Now, minerals, iron, calcium, magnesium, potassium, these things are slow and they don't move out of plants very easily. People talk about, oh, if you cook your plants, you're going to ruin the nutrition. You're going to destroy the nutrition. Well, you can't destroy minerals. So we're going to take our 1 ounce, 1 full ounce by weight of dried herb, put it into a quart jar. If you're working on the metric system, that's 30 grams in a liter jar, and then fill that jar right to the top with boiling water. And we're going to let it sit with a tight lid on it for 4 hours, because that's how long it takes to get the minerals into solution. In fact, what most people do, and what I do, is I weigh out the herb. I have a scale and I put my quart jar on the scale and I push T-A-R-E, tare, and then it says it's 0. It takes away the weight of the jar, and I put an ounce of dried herb in it, take it off the scale, put the scale away, put my water up to boil, go in the bathroom and brush my teeth. And you're supposed to brush your teeth, you know, a couple of rounds of happy birthday. I do happy birthday for each of the 4 quarters of my face. And that's about how long it takes a quart of water to boil. So by the time I'm done brushing my teeth, my tea kettle is whistling. I go in the kitchen, pour that water into the quart jar right to the top, use a wooden spoon to stir it, to wet down the
Wooden
plant
is
material.
very important. You don't want to use, God forbid, anything plastic. That would be really a disaster, or even metal.
Well, metal can actually occasionally break the jar if you're not like coordinated, and sometimes I'm not. So wooden works really well. You get the plant material wet, and you may have to add more water, put a lid on it, and then go to sleep. The next morning, it's ready to go. I had a student who was an MD, and she had made her nettle infusion the night before, and she had 5 teenage daughters. She worked in the emergency room for a little piece, she said.
It
She
was
said in the
busy.
emergency room, it was just heart attacks and gunshot wounds. Back home with the 5 teenagers, that was crazy all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So she went in to work, and a fellow MD is wheeled in on a gurney, and she says to him, "What's wrong?" He says, Noreen, I've had bloody diarrhea for 3 days, and I've lost 10 pounds. Now, you don't need to have a medical education to know this is serious.
Mm-hmm.
And that you could actually die from this.
Yeah.
And the interns are like, buzzing around and saying, "Oh, what should we do? Oh my gosh, his electrolytes are very bad." Yeah, if you're losing that much and it's bloody diarrhea, your electrolytes are not good. What should we do? Should we give him a transfusion? She said, no, no, no. She said, I'm going to give him my nettle infusion.
Oh.
She had brought it to work with her because it was too crazy at the house to even strain it. She got it, strained it, gave it to him. And so they have the blood work, and they can show his electrolytes going up so fast within half an hour. His electrolyte balance was back,
Amazing.
stabilized, because of the free minerals in your infusion. You're not going to get those minerals in a tea.
No.
Teas are wonderful to drink, but you have to make the infusion. You have to use a full ounce of herb, and you have to brew it for at least 4 hours. In other words, you don't need a fire. It can brew right there in that jar. So I talked about stinging nettle. Stinging nettle
Which is interesting. I just have to interrupt you. When I sent out the email announcing our time today, I have a photo of stinging nettle. So here we are talking about it.
It's like stinging nettle. How perfect. It's a great herb of spring, right?
It is.
And we love stinging nettle soup. But in order to get any nutrients from the stinging nettle soup, I bring water to the boil, drop my fresh nettle into the boiling water, boil it for an hour, turn the fire off, let it steep for 4 hours, and then bring it up to a boil again before I serve it. The action of the boiling will break some of the cell walls. You'll see it's not nearly as dark as the nettle infusion. People love nettle infusion because it's the herb of energy, and it rebuilds the adrenals and the kidneys. I had a woman walk up to me, and she said, "I come to all your classes," she said, "but I hang out in the back, and so I've never introduced myself to you, and you don't know me," she said. But a couple of years ago, my GP said to me, "I'm going to put you on a list for kidney transplant." And I said, "Kidney transplant?" And my GP says, "Yeah, your kidney numbers are like getting worse and worse. And then eventually you're going to be in kidney failure. It's a really long list. So we'll just put you on now. It may be, another 7 or
I
8
like
years."
we'll just.
Right.
So
Maybe
I
another
just have
7
to
or 8.
interrupt you, Susan, because this is such a moment for preventive and naturopathic and herbal botanical medicine.
Right.
You can pull yourself back from the precipice with the beauty and power of herbal medicine. You don't need to have a just moment.
Just in case, right? So she said she had heard me many times say that stinging nettle will completely rebuild your kidneys. She went out, she bought herself a pound of stinging nettle. She started making a quart of nettle infusion. The
Every
goal
day.
is to drink a quart a day, but if you only drink a cup or two, that's fine too. She said within 9 months, the doctor said to her, "I took you off the list. Your kidneys are completely healthy now." And she wasn't just drinking nettle infusion, but it was one of the primary ones that she was. What I love about nettle infusion is that it's so full of energy. People often say to me, "I hope that when I'm as old as you are, I have half as much energy as you do." And I say, drink your nettle infusion and you'll have twice as much energy as I will.
So I think nettles would be a wonderful infusion to drink while women are going through chemotherapy and radiation, and it will not interfere with your process of the chemo or the radiation.
Exactly.
Number one. And number two, for the women who are in my Empowered Against Recurrence program,
Yes.
I think that this would be a wonderful herb for you to start drinking now because it's spring. So we're doing a spring mini detox. And I have an idea of where women can purchase this. Do you have an idea of where people can purchase
Frontier.
this?
Frontier, and we sent a link to you so that you can post that link for
Okay,
Frontier.
I will send out an email with the link.
Yeah, they have wonderful prices. You can get organic nettle, buy it by the pound. You're going to be using an ounce a day, so a pound is only going to last 2 weeks, right? So don't
Okay.
buy just an ounce, buy a whole pound.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you can get a pound for $20 plus whatever the shipping is. You order enough and you start
Just get a
drinking
couple
Nourishing over.
pounds. I mean, but you have to commit to using it, ladies. You're not gonna. I don't want this to be a thing that you know look at now and you go, oh, it sounds great. I'm going to buy it, and then it sits on your counter.
Right.
We have to do it.
Yes, it's not just, we don't just think about it. We're actually doing it.
Yeah.
What the drug that most women are put on after they've been treated for breast cancer is tamoxifen.
Tamoxifen.
And,
Yeah. A lot of women are on either tamoxifen or an aromatase inhibitor.
aromatase inhibitors. But let's talk just briefly about tamoxifen. Tamoxifen
Right.
is what?
It's a SERM, selective estrogen receptor modifier, and it creates an enormous amount of oxidative stress. It can create more aggressive cancer in the opposite breast.
It killed an aunt of mine for sure. But what is important is for us to understand that tamoxifen is estrogen. And that's confusing to people because they think estrogen is one thing, but estrogen is in fact hundreds of things.
Right.
First of all, human women make 30 different kinds of estrogen.
Okay.
I'm 76. I am not lacking in estrogen. I started making 29 kinds of estrogen when I was in utero. When I was about 5 months baked in my mama's belly, I started making 29 kinds of estrogen, and I make those every single day of my life, from before being born until the day I die. At puberty, I started making estradiol. At menopause, I stopped making estradiol, but I still have those other 29 estrogens, and those are called safe or short path estrogens. The estradiol is the dangerous or long path estrogen, and what tamoxifen is a short path estrogen that blocks the action of the long path estrogens, which are the environmental pollutants, or long path estrogens that can in some cases promote or even cause cancer. It's hard to get a real finger on this because there's so many of them and they're so pervasive.
But the important thing for women to know is they have the ability, a lot of ability, to reduce the impact and exposure to environmental estrogens. And that comes by creating a toxin-free home and being very astute and smart about the body products you're using, about your laundry detergent, about your dishwashing detergent.
Everything.
Anything that touches your skin or you breathe.
Which my first teacher told me is another mouth.
Oh, yeah, your skin is an organ. And when you put toxic junk on it, guess what? That toxic junk.
You're eating it.
Yeah.
You're eating it.
So when I send out emails with certain skin lines that are safe enough for you to eat. So you need to really, really take that seriously. You have control over a lot of environmental toxins that you are exposed to. You can reduce that risk enormously, right?
Well, people often ask me at 76 how I have such good looking skin. And I say, I don't use products on it. I use coconut oil with herbs infused in it.
That's beautiful.
It's so simple to make them yourself. So, so tamoxifen is a short path estrogen that blocks the effect of long path estrogens. So even if you're getting some environmental pollutants in, it's pretty hard to completely avoid them because they are everywhere. What your protection is the short path estrogens and upping the short path estrogens. Now, you're probably aware of the study where they took 100 women and fed them a serving of beans and then collected their pee. Because beans contain these short path estrogens, but they're not actually active in the body. They have to go through a fermentation process in the gut in order to become biologically active. And that causes byproducts, which are put out in the urine. So we can actually, by looking at the urine, tell how much of the short path estrogens were activated and used in an individual woman's body. And they divided, based on what they saw in the urine, the women into 4 quadriles, the 25 who excreted the least of these enzymes, which means they weren't getting very much from the beans, and the 25 who excreted the most, and then, of course, the two groups in between. They then followed them for 10 years, and there was a 400% difference in the diagnosis of breast cancer. The women who were converting those short path estrogens in the beans into active hormones weren't getting breast cancer. The women who were eating the beans weren't converting, were getting the breast cancer. So herbs like astragalus and red clover are in the bean family. You're going to read a lot of junk about how they're noxious for women who have a breast cancer diagnosis, but I call them herbal tamoxifen.
Okay, but I don't want women to start hearing this and think that they should, get off the tamoxifen and start
We're not talking about getting off anything. We're talking about using herbs in addition to whatever you're doing.
Also to minimize,
it makes it more effective. These particular herbs actually make the tamoxifen a more effective way to prevent recurrence.
And there is something
I'm a big fan of integrated medicine.
We are alike like that. We are very much alike.
I don't know if you can see the
complementary integrated medicine.
Right. I don't like integrative. I want it integrated, because integrative means you do the radiation, then you do the herbs. And integrated means you do the herbs and the radiation, or you do the herbs and the chemotherapy together. And yes, there are herbs that I wouldn't use if I was doing chemotherapy or radiation, but there are a lot that we can use. So stinging nettle is one of the 5 herbs that I rotate through for my Nourishing Herbal Infusions, and red clover is a very important one as well, because it's protective. It's protective against cancer. Linden is another one that I really want to talk about. I taught at a very, very big naturopathic conference. There were thousands of people there. And you walked into the sales hall, and the first thing you saw was a huge banner, and it said, turmeric doesn't work unless it's our scientific process, because we've created a process that actually activates the curcumin so it works. Okay. And then there's another sale, and then, wow, there's another big sign, and it says, don't believe anybody who says they have a special process that makes turmeric work, because it's not going to work unless you use our 5-step process. And that's what actually makes turmeric work. And we don't have to get to the third one to see the third sign that says turmeric doesn't work to know turmeric is not going to work as an anti-inflammatory the way you've been led to believe. It's not that it isn't an anti-inflammatory. It's just taking pills of it isn't going to get you there. Linden is a better anti-inflammatory. It tastes better. It doesn't stain everything yellow. And it's more part of the culture that you're involved in. So what I say to people is, if you live in India, then turmeric is going to be a tremendous anti-inflammatory. You're going to make it by putting some ghee in a pan, heating it up, putting the turmeric in the hot ghee, and cooking that turmeric.
With black pepper.
With some pepper and other spices. Then you're going to put dal or rice into those spices and into the ghee, and you're going to cook that up like risotto, like you start a risotto. Then you're going to pour water over it, boiling water over it, and cook it. And you're going to eat that 5 to 8 times a day.
Well, that's a lot of eating, everyone, and that's not a reasonable thing that we're going to do.
We're not going to do it. So linden flower is beautiful, tastes great. And you know what I love about herbs? You always get a side effect with the herbs that you want. The side effect with linden is it improves your mood. Will we take that side effect? Yes, we will take that side effect.
We'll all take that side effect.
We will all take that side. Linden can actually reduce C-reactive protein by 50% within 3 weeks.
Now, just for the people who don't know what that means, C-react, and we're about to have our Monitoring Your Health week next week. C-reactive protein is one of the biomarkers or blood markers that I just sent out. I'll be sending out an email this weekend about that indicates how much inflammation you have in your body. And when I start working with someone, there's some base monitors that we get, and then we put you on a protocol, and then 3 months or 5 months or 6 months later, we recheck those base monitors and we see, and it's very common for women to have elevated C-reactive protein
Very common.
before breast cancer, and then after breast cancer treatment. It's almost impossible not for
I was going to say it's almost a given after radiation and
yeah,
chemotherapy that
absolutely.
it's going to be up. Yeah.
But guess what? This is something that we do, that we know about, that we can reduce. You know, regular oncologists, well, maybe they run the test, but they don't. Maybe they'll tell you to take a baby aspirin or
Exactly.
a COX-2 inhibitor, maybe if you're lucky, but most of the time they don't even run it. So this is an empowering moment for you all,
Yeah.
ladies.
Yeah. So linden, you don't have to use a full ounce of linden. Half an ounce of linden is fine. It's a flower, and it's a flower that has like a green leaf-like thing. The actual leaves of the linden are quite large, and they're heart-shaped. And the part of the flower that you're going to see is more like a green strap. And sometimes the bag will say linden leaf and flower, but it isn't really the leaf, because people don't really understand that this is part of the flower. However, that is loaded in polyphenols. What do polyphenols do?
Okay, polyphenols for all of us are the beauty of plant medicine. They're very anti-inflammatory. They get into your cells and they go, where's that inflammation? Gobble, 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 gobble. And that's why we eat plants. That's why a plant-based diet is so important. That's why Susun is talking about doing herbal infusions. This is medicine before pharmacy came into being. This is natural pharmacopoeia. And the beauty of research and science now is we can study which plants are most active in which polyphenols and which catechins and what they do. So it's not like a touchy-feely, oh, I think I'll use a little of this, I will use that. It's really science-based. That's the beauty of botanical medicine these days. And Susun is one of the world experts in this.
Now, there's another advantage, or we could say a side effect from polyphenols, which is that polyphenols themselves are resistant starches. So they actually feed the gut bacteria that allows you to use the plant hormones that are in the astragalus and the red clover. So we start to see how rotating through these infusions, how useful it can be.
You know, I just want to say, before we were talking about astragalus, astragalus is one of the herbs I recommend to reduce tamoxifen when people get resistance to tamoxifen. So astragalus reduces tamoxifen resistance. And this has been researched in PubMed and Science. This is not a touchy-feely makeup moment. So in addition to all those other side effects of supporting your kidneys and your adrenal glands, it reduces tamoxifen resistance. So if anyone is on tamoxifen, this is one of the herbs that I recommend that we use for you all the time.
And astragalus can be made as an infusion. You could get an ounce of dried astragalus, put it in a quart jar, fill it to the top with boiling water, tightly lid it, let it steep at least 4 hours or overnight. And I don't even strain my astragalus infusion because it's in sticks, so you can just drink it right out of the thing. Astragalus can be a little more expensive than nettle or linden or the herbs we're talking about. So I'll often make a rebrew.
Oh, so you make it once, drink it, and then use
And then
those.
I'll
We
make
do
it
that in
again.
Chinese
And I'll
medicine.
drink more the second time, right? I'll figure it's like half as strong, so I'll
Okay.
drink twice as much. But just because it's a root, so you're going to get some more stuff out of it. You're not going to with the leaves. You can't do red clover twice or nettle twice, any of those. That doesn't really work. Right? Linden, actually, you can do twice because there's a mucilage in it. And if you put it in cold water the second time, you'll get this glop.
Which is great for pooping, ladies. It's great for your intestine. Anything
Really?
mucilaginous, when you see it, you may go, ugh, it's disgusting. But when I see it, I go, oh, great. That's going to help clean out your intestines and make great poops. So Liz has asked a question. I love Liz. Thank you for,
Thank you, Liz.
Does it improve the white count as well? Are you asking about astragalus, honey? I think you are. I'm not aware of astragalus improving the white
If
cell
you
count.
need to have white blood cells, macrophages improved, echinacea is the herb that does that. As a matter of fact, in midwifery practice, if we give a woman, say a woman's broken her waters, and we want to, just counter any possibility to infection because she's not really in active labor and we don't want to push her to do that. So we'll, give her a little echinacea. And if it turns out that we wind up having to transport we get into the birth and it's not going well, and then we have to say, when we go in, we have to say her white blood count is going to be elevated because we've been giving her echinacea. It's that dramatic that even within 24 hours, you're going to see a definite rise in white blood cells. Can it give you leukemia? No. Herbs don't do that. They don't make you go haywire like drugs do. So you'll only make the amount of white blood cells that your body can actually use.
So Sherry just said, wonderful info. Thank you. I've loved and followed Susun for years, going through chemo now, using food plant-based diet to keep side effects at bay. Sherry, that's so great. And there's a lot that we can help you with as far as reducing the side effects. You could reach out to me, PM me, and I will be in touch with you directly. But I think Susun is talking about infusion, and that's the beauty of herbs. Keep going, Susun. Women are loving this. Go ahead, honey.
I don't know if people know that 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago to the
No,
day
people
now,
do not know this.
I got a very urgent message from my uterus that something was wrong. And I started calling to get a biopsy, and I was turned down. Basically, nobody wanted to do a biopsy because I wasn't bleeding and I wasn't in pain. And finally, I found a obstetrician who said she was willing to do a biopsy and made an appointment with me not too far in the future. People were like, booking me out for 6 months in the future. And I said, no, it's got to be this month. And she's standing there with the cannula and she says, you don't really need this biopsy. I'm like, do the biopsy, right? And she looks at it. She comes out and she looks at it and she says, you have cancer. I said, we'll get the laboratory report, but that's what I think. That's why I'm here demanding this. Good. And so the laboratory report came back, indeed, endometrial cancer. And she said to me, okay, so we're going to remove your uterus, your fallopian tubes, your ovaries, your cervix, da-da-da. And I said, no. And she couldn't hear that.
No, this is the message. Just 2 seconds, Susun. First of all, if you think there's something the matter with going on, do not take a no for an answer. You have to be, the call of my program is empowered. You have to be empowered. You have to insist. And it's okay to be out of the box, but you can't let anyone dictate to you, oh, we'll see you in 6 months, or, oh, that's not possible. You have to insist. And number two, what Susun is talking about is individualizing your care. Mm-hmm. And not to diminish the knowledge of medical oncology, but they have a very specific skill set and they have very specific parameters around how they operate. And if that's not what you want, you need to be willing to sign the papers or really demand that, no, I don't want A, I want column B. So Susun, how did you end up doing?
And what I advise women is say to the doctor, I hear you. That's the treatment you would advise. I need some time to think about this.
Okay.
Because you may not have your no ready. I had my no ready.
Mm-hmm. Very good point.
What did I do? First of all, I called the most informed herbalists that I knew and that had known me. And I said, do you think I'm an absolute idiot for thinking I can deal with this myself? And they said,
Susun reached out for advanced second.
They said, no, you're not an idiot. These are indolent cancers. Endometrial cancers are indolent. It's not going to take over your body. And you have the resources and the knowledge to do this. So I worked on it. I would not let them inject radioactive dye into my lymph nodes so they could never stage it. That was another no that I gave them. But they had a class. And when they first did a class, it was class 4 out of 5. And over a period of almost 2 years, about 18 months, I got that down to class 0.
That's pretty amazing, ladies. But Susun has skill sets and work expertise.
And I was
she had a very specific
some dangerous herbs. Exactly. And I thought, wow, we're gonna beat this. This is gonna be great. Da da da. And I was using, all the stuff that I wanted. If it was from modern medicine, I use that too. It's okay. At one point, I woke up and I had this vision of an IUD, and I said to my oncologist, I said, "What about an IUD?" She said, "That's a great idea." Yes, a progesterone-eluting IUD. I said, my body wants it. I could hear my body asking for it. I said, let's get that in there. So we did that, along with all of the herbs. And when we got to stage 0, which to them is still cancer, right? Within a week, I felt a marble in that tissue that is between your rectum and your vagina.
Mhm.
And I had my finger there. It was pretty near. And there was a little pain there. And I thought, what is this? And so I went back to my gynecological oncologist. And we tried an MRI. We couldn't see anything. We tried a CAT scan. We couldn't see anything. So I said to her, we're going to do a biopsy. She said, well, are you in pain? I said, no. She said, are you bleeding? I said, no. She said, then we don't need to do anything. I said, wrong. We need to do something, and we need to do it now, and we need to do an open biopsy. I want an open biopsy. I want local anesthetic, not general, and I want
Right.
it to go to the lab while I'm on the table.
Very good,
So that
Susan.
we know. And that's what we did. It wasn't easy. As a matter of fact, I was almost thrown out of the hospital because they came in to put a line in me, and I refused the line, and they said, you have to have a line for local. I said, get out of here. You don't use a line for local. They said, well,
Yeah.
what if there's an emergency and we need to put something in you? I said, I got great veins. You'll be able to get into me in 2 seconds. Don't worry about it. And they actually were going to dismiss me from the hospital, but my oncologist came and said, you leave her alone.
Good.
We've agreed what we're doing. And there I am, flat on my back in the operating room with my legs spread. And I looked up at her and I said, you finally got me where you want me. Here I am with my legs spread for you. And she laughed and she said, I'm in my happy place. So it was human papillomavirus cancer.
HPV is viral based.
Viral based, which I probably got from sitting on a toilet seat, because this is the one that your mom is right about.
It's very hard to avoid HPV. HPV is instigated in a lot of different cancers. Anal rectal cancer, it's very common in, not just gynecological cancer, and also esophageal cancer. HPV is a virus that, and we all know about coronaviruses, but viruses are part of an imbalanced ecosystem. So the stronger we get your immune system from the inside out, the more resistant you will be to these floating around in the world viruses. I'm not saying it's a perfect situation, but we need to keep our immune system strong from the inside. And unfortunately, the messaging in mainstream media right now is never about that. And they're also suppressing those who want to talk about it. So we need to really become empowered in our understanding of that and how we take care of ourselves and our bodies.
This exact cancer killed my mother.
So Susan has,
and it killed my mother because she didn't pick up on it right away. She waited until she was in pain and bleeding. So I demanded treatment, and they told me that human papillomavirus is 100% killed by radiation. And I figured, I'm strong and I know which herbs to use. I'll do the radiation. I moved to New York City and I did 6 weeks of radiation. I did refuse their chemotherapy, which they were very unhappy about. But I did connect with an anthroposophic MD.
Yeah, that's who I refer my people to who need
mistletoe
therapy through my friend and colleague, Dr. Naisha Winters. And if anybody is thinking about that, reach out to me here and I will, with your email, and I will respond to you.
And it's pretty complex. Now, I will tell you truthfully.
You got to be treated by somebody who knows how to do it properly, okay?
You really do. You really do. I'm a needle phobe. And so when Dr. Lupp said to me, you'll be injecting yourself with mistletoe in your belly every night, I said, I can't do that. And she said, good, you can go do their chemotherapy.
Well, you can also get a colleague to do it, or a spouse, or you can learn how to do it.
I just had to learn how to do it because I figured, Susan, really, are you going to let your fear of needles put you into their chemotherapy? Come on, girl. Up the ante.
Empowered moment for Susan.
Empowered moment for Susan. Ah, she's sticking a needle into her own flesh. Ay, 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 ay.
I'm an acupuncturist, so it comes second nature to me. Yeah.
And the doctors kept saying, well, you're not doing chemotherapy. And I kept saying, I am doing chemotherapy.
Natural chemotherapy.
It's just not your chemotherapy. Right. Well, interestingly enough, and I kept asking, are we going to do some scans? Are we going to see if the radiation's working? And the radiation specialist said, the kind of cancer you have makes a hard shell because it's in a lymph node. And so the radiation is killing it, but from the inside, and you'll never see it change on the scan until it's completely gone. So it's pointless to do a scan because you won't think anything is happening. And I heard this repeated over and over again. You know, I did the 6 weeks and then it gets worse. And that was
Of course, oxidative stress. A
oxidative
huge
stress.
amount of
That was
oxidative
March and
stress.
April. By September, I thought that I was in the clear, that I had gotten through the worst of it. And I took a plane to California and I started bleeding and I lost over a pint of blood
Oh, that's
because the
serious.
radiation had perforated that piece of tissue and now I had a fistula.
Oh. You went from the airport to the emergency room.
I did not. No, I was fine because I drink nettle.
Okay.
So I could tolerate losing a pint of blood. I still had good color and I was still mentally active and appeared at the conference and even started teaching. Now I had to take massive amounts of painkillers because the pain was excruciating from that fistula. I lived with that for 9 months because I was so against an ostomy. And I continued to do the mistletoe therapy because it's a 2-year commitment. And Dr. Lupps said to me when I was there, in addition to injecting myself, I went monthly for an hour-long infusion. And she said to me, your cancer is growing. And I said, darn. I said, I've been getting that since too. And I've been actually trying to block it out. She said, I know you don't want an ostomy. I said, I really do not want an ostomy. She said, so let me ask you, if the cancer grew enough that it would block your function and you couldn't have a bowel movement, would you have an ostomy then? I said, you know, Dr. Lupps, I'm really stubborn, but I don't think I choose to die from not being able to take a crap. That stubborn I'm not. She said, so if it got that big, you would have the surgery and have an ostomy? I said, yeah, okay. She said, well, what do you think? Elective surgery or emergency surgery? Which would be
very smart. I love this woman. She knows how to work with people so they come to the
She
decision
knew how to trap
themselves.
me in that corner. And I said, well, obviously elective surgery. She said, I want you calling the surgeon. I want you on that surgery
right now
in a week. I'm like, no. And I spent the next hour, Carol, pulling every excuse I had out of my excuse bag as to why I could not do this. And she shot them down one after the other. She didn't let me. She didn't let me do any of those. I left her office, called my gynecological oncologist. She said, okay, I'm really shocked to hear you say that you're up for surgery, but okay, I have an opening in 10 days. They sent me for scans. That was May 8th. The colorectal cancer located in a lymph node was 7 centimeters on the scan. When they took it out of my body on May 13th, 5 days later, it was 8.5.
So it was very growing. It was very growing.
So aggressive. If Dr. Lupps had not sent me then, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you now.
Well, thank goodness.
They had to get clear margins, and they did. They got clear margins. There's no lymph node involvement, no spread of any kind. But in order to get those clear margins, they had to take a big hunk of me. They took my anus, my rectum, half of my descending colon. They took my coccyx, my tailbone. They took half of my sacrum. They took the sits bones on the left side because the cancer was more to the left. They took my uterus, cervix, fallopian tubes. I told them there were 3 things I wanted left. I wanted my ovaries left, I wanted my bladder left, and I wanted to be able to have an orgasm. Good. They came through on all 3 of those. The gynecological oncologist, of course, was like, what if your ovaries are this? Or what if your ovaries are that? Or what? I said, you know what? You're going to go in there. You're going to be thrilled at what my ovaries look like. And afterwards, she said to me, the healthiest, pinkest, most beautiful ovaries I have ever seen in my life as a gynecological surgeon. I was happy to leave them.
So if Susun
ovarian cancer doesn't start in the ovaries.
I know, but if Susun wasn't the person she is, she would not have the vital force she does with that extensive surgery. Another person who had not divorced the standard American diet or the standard American way of living would be debilitated by the amount of removal they had. But Susun has the skill set of bringing in botanical and herbal medicine, and that's why she is so positive and healthy and vibrant.
And here. They turned me out of the hospital at 119 pounds, Carol.
Yeah.
right? I'm 149 now. How do you put on 30 pounds of muscle in your 70s? You know the answer.
30 pounds of muscle. And it's interesting, we have the same cups.
That's right. Nourishing Herbal
Mine has,
Infusions is how you do it, because these infusions are very, very rich in protein. And plant protein is a whole other thing. Animal protein, I needed a lot of animal protein too. When I came out of that, I ate more animal protein in that year than I'd probably eaten in my entire life, to tell you the truth, because my body said that and that and that. And I said, that's fine. Because one of the things that I believe is that, especially when you're in recovery, no food foibles. Your body asks you for something. When I was doing the radiation, all my body wanted to eat was green tea gelato.
oh,
Fine,
green
we'll eat
tea,
green.
but
If
not
that's what you'll eat, I'll buy you green tea gelato. We're in New York City. I can get it freshly made. It's got pure ingredients. That's what you'll eat. I'm giving it to you. You're telling me. I'm gonna listen to that. Right. So, I was at a yoga class 2 weeks after coming out of surgery.
That's amazing. That's
I
just
slept
amazing,
through it.
ladies.
I slept through it, but I was at my yoga class.
Okay, you were there.
I was there. And so week by week, I would be a little more awake and a little more alert and a little more able to do things. Now, I've just about completely
That most people
restored
can't do that with I can't do that. I mean, I
my
exercise,
flexibility.
but good
Right.
for you.
And I'm
That's
I'm
amazing.
actually stronger now than I was 2 years ago, because I've spent these 2 years making myself strong. I asked the surgeon who put me back together again, the plastic surgeon. I said, were any of my pelvic floor muscles cut? And they said, oh, goodness, we would never cut your pelvic floor muscles. I said, oh, good. All right. He said, we just cut all of the attachments. So basically, I had no pelvic floor. I've been working very hard for these 2 years to reestablish
You hear this?
some
She's
kind of
been
pelvic floor.
working very hard. It takes work.
It takes work. Yes. Yeah. You don't just come home and lay around. You
No,
work.
even though that's what your body thinks it wants, that's not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
You
I
need the
taught a class that weekend. Now, I wasn't even allowed to walk. So they carried me outside, put me on a futon outside. I taught for 2 hours. I fell asleep. The apprentices fed the students, took them on a walk to show them the plants I talk about, brought them back when I woke up, and I finished the class.
It's beautiful.
Be yourself. And people are saying, you should just be inside. I'm like, the sun is healing me.
No,
The
being
air
outside is the
healing
most
me.
important thing.
Yes, be out. Get yourself outside.
Yeah.
So, wow. This is why I love Carol and the work that she's doing with all of you, because she's going to set you on a path of empowerment, a path where you can listen to yourself and do what you need to do to be optimally healthy. It's not one way fits everybody. We have to individuate that and to find what it is. Hey, they tossed my gut. I mean, they literally took my guts out of me, threw them on the table. Right? I was in surgery for 17 hours.
Oh my goodness.
Right. And then they put me in a coma for 13 hours.
Oh my goodness.
I have 4 units of blood. There's several times that they thought I was going to bleed to death because my blood pressure is kind of low. Sorry about that. So it was a big, big deal. And when we use deep medicine, and this book talks about the 7 medicines, right? Serenity medicine, story medicine, mind medicine, lifestyle medicine, alternative medicine, pharmaceutical medicine, and deep medicine, which is chemotherapy, radiation, surgery. Sometimes we go for those things, but we use them as a portal to a bigger self, not a reduced self. The fact that all of this was cut out of me and they took it as one specimen with clean margins, which is why it took them so long. Right? The fact that this massive amount, really almost 10% of my body weight was removed from me, made not a smallness in me, but a largeness in me, a place for greater things, a place to give more. People started asking me, well, now that you have a cancer diagnosis, how has cancer changed your life? And I'll admit, gave a grumpy answer. I said, my life hasn't changed at all. I had a perfect life, perfect diet, You know, I'm totally thrilled. I'm really happy. Cancer didn't change anything at all. And after listening to myself say that over and over again, I thought, what a grumpy answer, girl. Could you like make up a better answer, please? And so I thought about it and I thought, you know, I could let cancer make me more generous. Why not? Why not choose something that's going to be a benefit to me and everybody else as a gift from my experience?
Well, I mean, I'm just writing that in the chat, everyone else. This is this is the message. You have a blop that appears in your path of life that you didn't volunteer for. And most of us, you can't get away from something showing up in our path that like, okay, I didn't volunteer for this. Thank you very much. You have a very important moment to choose which way you're going to go. Is it going to be like closed and grumpy and a victim? Or are you going to go, okay, I didn't volunteer for this, but I'm going to use this as a moment to really expand my consciousness about myself, my message, my work in life. And I'm not necessarily talking about, you know, a 9-to-5 job.
Right.
I'm talking about who you are and how are you benefiting yourself and others in the world. And first, you have to take care of yourself 100% before you can go out there and give to others. That's message number one. So if you're not feeling well, you need somebody like me and Susan to guide you to get your essential chi or vital force back.
Yeah.
But then what one thing can you do to help somebody else to bring them along? And that can be something simple like going across the street to an elderly neighbor and saying, hi, you know, would you like to come over to our house for dinner once a week? Or how are you doing? Do you need help? I mean, but you have to have the vital force yourself before you can give it to others. And, you know, our world right now is in this miasm of, on one side, there's this horrible war and destruction, but which is permeating all of us. But the other side of that is that the world is coming together in unity for freedom and love and peace. And the Ukrainian people are showing what true resilience means while their world in their towns are being flattened and destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
talk about deep medicine. They're really experiencing some very deep medicine. And I know how much everyone that I talk to feels what's going on there. We really feel part of this, not like it's on the other side of the world. It's almost like it's happening in the town next door.
It could easily be happening where we live,
Yeah.
which is the message of the world. It's not far away.
So I rotate through 5 nourishing herbal infusions.
Okay, we started with the 3. Let's list the first 3 again. We have astragalus.
Yes. Astragalus is not one of the 5, but it's a good one. And
it's not one of the 5. Okay, let's start over. Go ahead.
Nettle, stinging nettle. The herb of energy that's going to rebuild your adrenals and your kidneys. So you're talking about getting your chi together. Nettle's going to do it. Nettle is going to rebuild that chi really fast. Usually happens in 7 to 8 days. All right. We talked about red clover, which is herbal tamoxifen. If you take a single red clover plant and lay the roots out, right, take them apart and lay them out, the roots will encircle the globe. Red clover has this massive root network. And in the same way, red clover is very powerful in the nervous system. I find that many women have a hard time getting their energy back after cancer treatments because the nervous system has been impacted by the chemotherapy and radiation, and nobody really says much about that.
No, of course not.
But the red clover is really ideal. Again, as I say, the great thing about the herbs is you get all of these kind of side effects, which are actually benefits. So stinging nettle, red clover, linden, the great anti-inflammatory, tastes a lot better than turmeric. You don't have to eat it 6 times a day, go through any conniption fits, just make your linden infusion, but we can use half an ounce rather than a full ounce. And then the 2 we haven't talked about are oat straw and comfrey. Now we know about people who are feeling their oats, don't we? So if you want to be feeling your oats, oat straw is a good one for that. And we know about people who are sowing their oats. I was leading a workshop on menopause in California, in Southern California, and a woman said, you know, Susan, I got to menopause, and down there, it just dried up. And my sex drive, gone.
Mhm.
Up to lunch.
Which is a
Completely.
very big problem for women when they're on these tamoxifen and
That.
aromatase inhibitors. And that's one of the reasons I did my Recovering Intimacy After Breast Cancer mini summit, because it's a very big deal. But I didn't
Very
talk
big
about
deal.
oat straw. So,
What did I say? I wanted my ovaries, my bladder, and my orgasm. You leave my
right.
orgasm alone. Right. So she said to me, she said, I got your book, New Menopausal Years. And she said, and I started reading about oat straw, and I thought, that's for me. And she went out and she bought her pound of oat straw, and she started weighing it out. An ounce of oat straw in a quart jar, fill the top with boiling water, put a lid on it, let it sit overnight, strain it. She said, whoa. She said within 2 weeks, her libido had come home with company. And down there, which had been a desert with camels and sand dunes, became an oasis with date palms and dancing girls. I
Oh,
love her image. It's such a wonderful image.
it is a wonderful image.
You know, and it's just exactly what oat straw does. And of course, if you go out to the supermarket to buy oats, you'll see a heart on the box, because
Yeah.
oats fantastic for your heart. And you know, if you have decided on radiation as an adjuvant treatment for breast cancer, your heart is being impacted.
Oh,
You
yes,
really, you
definitely.
need to take care of the heart, and oat straw is going to help you take care of your heart. There's, of course, lots of things to do while that radiation is going on, which we're not talking about. But oat straw throughout, and all of these nourishing herbal infusions are perfectly safe to do while you're doing chemo, while you're doing
And
radiation,
radiation.
any of that.
And the fifth one,
What I'm drinking today is comfrey.
comfrey.
And comfrey is perhaps the herb in these five that more people go, are you sure about that,
Why is
Susan?
that?
Why is that?
Because I think comfrey is a wonderful healing medicinal herb. What's the problem with it?
Indeed. Well, actually, I don't know if you know, but I'm putting on a comfrey conference.
Oh, no, I
It's
don't know.
free. It's absolutely free up until May 10th. It runs from May 9th through May 15th, and we're going to have 2 to 3 presenters per day. They're already booked. And
Okay, you have to send me the link so I
I
can
will.
share that with my
And
community.
our keynote is Patch Adams, my good friend. So we're very excited to have Patch. I was just talking to him yesterday. I don't know if you know, but he had MRSA and he gave up his leg to it.
Oh, I didn't. I know who he is. I didn't know he had MRSA.
He had
You know
MRSA,
what?
and
I know this sounds weird, but if he wasn't who he was, they would have taken more than his leg.
I know, no, they, you know, he fought it for 2 years, and finally he said, "Goodbye, leg. I want to dance. This is too awful." So we're supposed to call him Stumpy now.
So this, I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but look at how Susan's attitude. She had, half of her body removed, and this Patch had half his leg removed, and both people are saying, I'm going to dance. I want to enjoy life. I mean, this
Yes,
is an example for everyone.
we're not going through these things so that we can lay around and complain.
No,
We're going through these
that's
things so that
here.
we
We're
can
not going around
be
through these
here.
things so we can lay around and complain and feel stuck and stagnant. So
No,
comfrey is the herb that what?
comfrey is symphytum.
I know.
It's the herb that puts things back together again. It's why I have a pelvic floor. 2 days ago, I was holding not a lot of weight, maybe 4 or 5 pounds. I bent down. Okay, holding weight, bending down, not so. And then I coughed, and I didn't leak. That's two
Oh,
years of very hard work.
yes, that was. I understand.
If you haven't
Pelvic
been there,
floor.
you may not even know what we're talking
No,
about.
pelvic floor work is something that's not discussed, but in gynecological oncology, I think it's a necessity, and it doesn't come about by 2 weeks of or 2 months of physical
And
therapy. You need to see a pelvic floor expert for this.
absolutely. And I had to fight like crazy to get my insurance to pay for this.
Yeah, you do.
They said, you don't need that. I'm like, excuse me? They just cut out my pelvic floor. They took all this out, and you're telling me I don't need rehabilitation? And we fought it, and we got insurance to actually pay for it. But again, you know, you're not done when the chemo or the radiation or the surgery is done.
No.
You're just starting.
Right.
You're really just starting. And now you get to take your health into your hands. And I have an energy session every week. I have a full body massage every 2 weeks. All right. I have mini massages every 3 or 4 days. I do pelvic floor therapy. I do Tai Chi. I told you I do yoga. I walk 4 to 6 miles every day. Why do I walk? Because you can't get
Muscle.
well unless you're moving
Right.
chi, lymph, and blood.
Hmm.
And walking is pretty easy. It doesn't require any special equipment. And should the weather be awful, you know what? I just walk around my house. I get a book and I walk around reading because I love to read. And I can easily walk
You
for.
can walk around with your 2-pound weights, and like I do, I look ridiculous, but I don't. I'm out there with the nice weather. I'm going like this. The neighbors know me. Oh, there's that crazy old lady with her weights, and I
With her
go,
weights.
yes,
Right.
I have strong muscles and strong bones and strong tendons, and I am happy to be a crazy healthy lady. Out there every day, up those hills where I live. It's a son of a you know what, but I'm out there. I
Out
love it.
there. I got a letter from a woman. She said, I was in my early 60s and my doctor said that I had osteoporosis
Mhm.
and he wanted me to
Important
take a
topic.
drug.
Oh,
And
no.
I said, I'm not taking your drug. And the doctor said, all right, then take some calcium supplements. She said, I'm not taking your calcium
Well,
supplements.
so they recommend the wrong form of calcium, which
Totally
drives me
wrong.
crazy. It's not about
Totally
calcium.
wrong.
We're talking about that.
And so the doctor said, well, will you exercise? And she said, no. Now there I would disagree with her. I would agree with her. Don't
Yeah.
take the calcium. Don't take the drugs for osteoporosis, but do move your
You
body.
need to
And
do,
anyhow, that was her choice. And she said
yeah,
over the next 2 years, she lost 2 inches in height.
yeah,
What's happening is the spine is compressing, right? The
right.
those bones are actually shortening, and the stuff in between them is shortening, and you wind up, kind of hunched over. And it's not like they're doing this because they want to; they literally can't straighten up. She said, "I just shortened my pants and my skirts." She said, "But what really got to me was I was feeling so tired." She said, "So my daughter graduated from her live out apprenticeship with you, and I said to her, 'What herbs do you know that will give you energy?'" Now, if we were dealing in modern medicine, we would probably say, well, coffee is an herb that gives you energy, right? And you can go out and buy lots of caffeine. And it is an herb and it's got polyphenols. It's not bad, right? It can actually help protect against Parkinson's, but it wouldn't be the one I would choose for energy. If you're working in the heroic approach, you would use really strong herbs like maybe pepper, which would, or other stimulants that would really get you going.
Coming at it from the wrong angle.
But
That's
the
the wrong angle.
difficulty is that when you stimulate, you erode response. So you're not really getting the ground that you need there. So she said to her mother, and you already all know the answer, drink nettle infusion. And she, being a good daughter, she weighed out nettle into 1 ounce bags, gave her mom 2-quart jars and a little strainer, and said, open a bag, put the herb in the jar, fill it full of boiling water, put a lid on it. In the morning, put the strainer in the other jar, pour the liquid in it, and then refrigerate that and drink it all day. So she did that. In about 5 days, she called her daughter and she said, well, I'm 64, but I feel like I'm 14. I have so much energy. Does that weed woman have any other nourishing herbal infusions I could drink? So she said, yeah, there's red clover, which is great for your nervous system and helps prevent cancer. There's oat straw, which is going to get you going and juicy. We want to be juicy old women now, don't we? She said, linden, wonderful anti-inflammatory, and comfrey, which knits everything together, pulls it all together, makes it strong and flexible.
Are you putting all the 5 of these together, or are they drinking them separately?
Separately, one at a
And
time.
so we do day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. We
You got it.
rotate through these. Okay, rotate
Rotating
through these 5
through those, right?
herbs.
So she wrote to me, she said, so, some of them I didn't really like the taste. And what I did was Sunday night, I would make a quart of nettle and a quart of red clover. And then Monday morning, I would strain them and put them in the refrigerator. And I would drink them on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. And then Wednesday night, I would make a quart of nettle and a quart of oat straw. And then I'd strain that and put it in the refrigerator. And I'd drink that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then Sunday, I took off. So I'm saying a quart a day. She was doing 4 quarts a week. Within 14 months, her doctor called her and said, you have to come back for a retake on your bone scan because obviously the machine was miscalibrated. In fact, her bones were now healthier and she was now in her late 60s than they had been when she was 40. Don't let them tell you can't replace bone mass.
No, of course you
I'm
can.
going into my radiation treatment and I see a pelvis an x-ray of a pelvis. And I stop and I say, whoa, that is a really good looking pelvis. Look at how strong those bones look. It looked like a kid had like colored in the femurs with a white crayon. They were so dense and strong. And they said, that's your pelvis. They said, we don't see that kind of bone density in women half your age.
Okay, this is just one more example of how we need to divorce standard American diet, standard American lifestyle, and standard American concept of you're a victim of osteoporosis. There's nothing you can do about it, especially when women are placed on tamoxifen and aromatase inhibitors.
Exactly.
Oh, you're going to get osteoporosis. You have to come in every X number of months for Zometa infusion, which for me is very mixed bag.
Very. There's ways to do it without that, is what I would say.
Right, but you need.
We don't even have to say it's good or bad. We can just say you don't have to do that. There are really good ways. But you need
to be willing to commit to the work of doing what Susun is telling you, and you need to get into a system and a rhythm, and you need to do it.
That's why I link it with brushing your teeth, because I know everybody brushes their teeth.
Hopefully. So and flosses.
So if you link it into something you already do, it's easier to establish that new habit.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Susun, we could talk for another hour, but I have a client that I need to get to. And so let me just follow up. We're going to share with everybody a link to Frontier Herbs. We're going to share with everyone about Susun's upcoming comfrey conference, which I can't wait to attend to. And we're going to share how to reach out and purchase Susun's book. This is the older one, but she has an updated one.
No, this is not updated. This is a totally different
book. A new one, Abundantly Well. I love that.
Totally. I have 6 books out.
I know that.
Right. So
I only have one. I'm Susun book deficient.
We're going to take care of that.
Okay.
We'll make
and
sure you'll get
Susun, we'll be in touch. And thank you for taking time out of your beautiful day to be here with my community. And this was just one of the most wonderful interviews we've had. And I can't thank you enough from the bottom of our heart.
Carol, I appreciate you. Every woman on this planet has a better life and a better chance because of your work. Thank you.
That's how I feel about you. We're like a mutual appreciation moment. Okay, blessings to everyone. Susun, have a lovely afternoon. Thank you so much for being here, ladies. Carol, Lourie signing off for now, and there'll be more later. Bye for now.